continue here. Several suspects allegedly linked to the killings that took place in Phoenix appeared at the Verulam Magistrate Court today. Protestors gathered outside, calling for those appearing in relation to the unrest to not be granted bail. Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan joins us live. Karinda, good evening. And firstly, let's kick it off with the people who were appearing in court today. We have those that are related, that had been arrested in connection with the unrest, but we also have those that, of course, are facing charges. And as far as the killings in Phoenix are concerned, separate for us who the suspects in question in Verulam were.
Indeed. Good evening to you, Kathy. We understand, like you said, 10 suspects have appeared at court. But the issue with this is that the court proceedings were held in camera, which means they were held privately. So at this stage, it's only those court officials that understand who exactly these suspects are and what types of charges they're facing. But just off the bat from the NPA, we understand that the various charges that the suspects are facing, some of them include murder, attempted murder, possession of stolen property, malicious injury to property, and the unlawful possession of a firearm as well as ammunition. While we were sitting inside court, we did hear that that 3 of the suspects were facing murder charges, while other suspects were facing charges relating to stolen goods, as well as relating to possession of firearms and unlawful ammunition. So that is what is happening at the court. The NPA says that they asked for this to be held privately, the suspect's first court appearance to be held privately, because an identity parade had not been done at that time. The case has now been remanded to Friday for a formal bail application, Kathy.
Karinda, this story is of huge public interest, and so transparency is also going to be important, especially for those who feel that there has been really ill intentions, at least on the part of some residents in Phoenix, when it came to this whole idea of them protecting their properties. So do we know if at some point these proceedings are going to be held publicly?
Well, it must be, because after all, courts are public spaces. At this stage, we understand it was only held privately at this stage because an identity parade had not been done. But you are correct. This is, a great matter, or an important matter to look on, especially because of the allegations of racism that we see stemming in the suburb of Phoenix, as well as other affluent suburbs across KwaZulu-Natal. I must also tell you, there was an interesting picture painted on the ground just outside court, where you had different groups demonstrating outside court, but for different reasons. Just outside the Verulam court, where suspects are appearing for murder, and we understand on the ground that there have been racial profiling at some of the illegal roadblocks. On one side, there was a group of predominantly members of the African community that were calling for these suspects to be denied bail and speaking to us about what they had been through over the past 2 weeks. And then literally on the other side of the court, there were a group of predominantly Indian community members that were saying that they were there to support the suspects. They said that the suspects had a right to bail. And so it was, clearly a picture painted of the divide that we're already seeing in the suburb of Phoenix, but also really across areas of our country where racism still exists. There are racial tensions, and the idea and mindsets have not changed for a number of, especially elder people in communities. So it was interesting to see how this was unfolding. And, we can say that on Friday we expect further demonstrations to take place in a similar fashion, where these, 2 communities are coming to court demonstrating, but for different reasons, even though we raised questions with members of the Indian community about the fact that the suspects are facing murder charges, serious crimes, as well as we are seeing the suburb becoming almost another epidemic of racism, of violence as well occurring in that area. But for them, they say that the suspects who were arrested very brutally by police, and they're standing on their leg of wanting to see the suspects get their right to bail and then further go on trial. But then, we spoke to a young gentleman who said that he fears going into Phoenix on many occasions during, especially the first week of when the unrest occurred, because of what he heard about some of the illegal roadblocks. So definitely a divided community, as the case which should be at the center of this still goes on.
Karinda, in terms of the fatalities, that figure was estimated to be around 20 people that had been murdered in Phoenix. I heard the Education MEC, KwaZulu-Natal, earlier saying that, he's working off a figure of 38 people. Whichever way you look at it, there's a significant number of people who have been killed, murdered effectively, and their families want and deserve answers as to why these people were killed. Any sign of those families in court today?
We haven't seen families of the victims. I saw friends of some of those who passed away that came up to us, asking them to tell the story of those who had passed over the past 2 weeks. We've told the story of a 15-year-old boy who was hit by a stray bullet in his home. And sadly for his mother, she might never get to know who was the perpetrator who fired the gun from which the bullet ultimately killed her son. And, until the courts, which are currently, Kathy, very much backlogged at the moment, which was the reason why there have been so many delays in getting these suspects to court. Even today, there were so many delays because of the backlogs following the court appearances of those accused of looting and that side of these matters. But because of this, and because police have so much to deal with, and possibly because they didn't act fast enough, I don't know when or how fast the families, especially of the victims who died, especially in the brutal manners that we saw regarding the racial profiling and racism, when they're going to see justice. Because even now, we really don't know who the suspects are that appeared in court today. And only by Friday, if indeed the matter is then held for the public to view, will we be able to know and get to see part of that unfolding. Because you must realize that the media is very much a part of that justice system, passing the message from the court to those who we usually see coming to court, asking for the court to deny suspects bail in circumstances like this, where someone has been killed. And so it stands to see how fast this case will be turned at the courts, and whether or not police are going to see any further arrests. In fact, of the 20 arrests that were made in KwaZulu-Natal with regards to murders, 5 of them are in connection with the murders in Phoenix. There have been 110 murders that occurred within the eThekwini Metro municipality. Of that, like you mentioned, 38 in Phoenix.
Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan there with the latest from Phoenix. Whichever way you look at it, the cost of this recent action, absolutely immeasurable.